Hello folks, I'm here today with the new 5th generation Hyundai Santa Fe. This is a monstrous size SUV. The underpinnings of this are largely the same as the outgoing model, but as you can see, from a design point of view, it's a complete change. We've got these awesome looking H headlights at the front, also some similar lights at the back, but it's just so big and bold and chunky. It is slightly bigger than the outgoing model, but it's taken on a whole new leaf here. It's so much more rugged, so much more aggressive, and I personally love the look of it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Performance figures are nothing earth-shattering. You're looking 9.3 seconds to 62, somewhere in that region. All electric range in this one's just over 33 miles, which is fine. It's competitive, but it's not anything exceptional. If you're looking to tow, you've got a limit of 1,100 kilos. And in ICE mode, you're looking at 160 PS of power and 265 Newton meters of torque. In full plug-in hybrid, all singing, everything's working mode, 253 PS of power and 367 Newton meters of torque. Where the design's perhaps a bit more challenging is with this back end. It's very slab-sided because the designers want to make the boot as useful as possible. But it's not as pleasing to the eye, at least to me, as the front end. Although it's definitely got its own character. Whilst we're around here, we might as well have a look at the boot space, which is cavernous. I mean, it's absolutely huge. This plug-in hybrid model is only available in 7-seat configuration, but even with one seat up, or with both seats up, you've still got enough space for a couple of carry-on bags standing up. And if we were to put this seat down, it's just huge. In fact, I was actually invited on the launch of this vehicle, but I couldn't go because I was on holiday in Spain at the time with the family. But what they did for that launch is drove up into the Welsh mountains, dropped all the seats down and had a mattress in here. And you can actually camp in this thing. That's the size of it with those back seats down. So it's more than capable of dealing with even the most challenging trip to IKEA. This is very well designed and incredibly practical. Now, in terms of drivetrains, all models of the new Santa Fe come with the 1.6 petrol hybrid. The standard hybrid can come in 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive modes. And if you go for the plug-in hybrid, that's only available as a 4-wheel drive. Now, the standard hybrid version of this car in 7-seat configuration starts at 47 grand. You can also get that standard version as a 6-seat, by the way, that costs a bit more. If you want to go for a plug-in hybrid, they start at 52,000, just under 52,000. This one's in calligraphy trim, which takes that up to 57,000. And we've also got this absolutely gorgeous earthy brass paint, which is kind of a satin finish. I think it looks gorgeous on this thing. I don't think I've ever loved a brown car before, but I really like the way this thing looks. It really suits the car. 59,000, just under that takes it up to. That's a £1,200 paint option. So the pricing might seem a bit punchy. Don't forget there will be lease deals and things available on these, and there is of course a link to Lease Loco in the video description if you want to have a look at those. But this is now a very premium vehicle, and you'll see more of that premium side when we step inside. Forget everything you knew about Hyundai, folks. They have leveled up with this car. Now, to get into the back row of seats in a 7-seat SUV can sometimes be a real faff. But in this, it's really not too bad. First, we've got a button here that drops that seat down and pushes it forward. And then look at that. We've got a grab handle built into the side of the car, and in we go. Now I'm about 5'9" and a bit, and I'm in the back here, and yes, my legs are right into the back of this seat in front. However, I could certainly do a short journey in here without too many problems. And if you've got sort of older children, they're going to be completely fine in here. It's also well equipped for the furthermost sort of rear passengers. You've got double cup holder, an armrest, USB-C socket. There's even a mains outlet in this one, and you've got independent aircon controls. What's not to like? Rather than measuring legroom in centimetres, you could probably measure it in acreage, and there's also a ton of headroom. It is a bit dark in here. We've got a dark headliner, we've got black headliner, and we don't have any kind of sunroof. But aside from that, are we that bothered? If it gets too light for you still, you've also got rear blinds in this one. Ooh, if I can make them work. The seats are very comfortable. There's plenty of space. You could easily sit 3 adults across the back here. You might even get 3 child seats in here, but I'm not sure. You'd have to check for yourself. And there are just so many clever little features. You've got a couple of hooks there to put bags or a jacket or anything like that onto. A nice little area to hide items away. Perhaps you want to keep a magazine or your iPad or something in there. We've got the now very familiar USB-C sockets in the side of the seat, which is a great place for them to be, because it means people don't kick them as they get in and out when they're in the center console and possibly damage that port forever. So that's great. That's another great feature. You've got another little hanger there. Everything about this has been thought out. You know, the air vents are in the pillar there rather than again down here. So rather than having cold legs, you've actually got this perhaps at your face or your body where you want it. Very well designed. You've got a little drawer here to put things in. I just love this as a rear cabin. We've got a nice big comfy armrest with almost a triple cup holder in it. In the doors here, I've got a couple of cup holders on each side. This one's also got heated rear seats. Materials are nice, but not anything sort of ridiculously luxurious. They just feel like they're going to last forever. This car's got some really stiff competition from some really big brands. You know, the large sort of family SUV kind of category is fairly busy, is it not? But this does a rear cabin as well as any of them, and I mean any of them. It's very, very good. So if you ever spent any time in the outgoing model of Santa Fe, you'll know that it was extremely practical, extremely functional, but quite busy in terms of an interior, and perhaps not the most interesting of interiors. That's all changed, folks. They have really gone up a level with this one. Firstly, material quality is pretty much fantastic throughout. Really nice choice of materials. It looks interesting enough despite it being a dark interior in this one, but it all feels like it's going to last for a long time. It feels like it's going to age gracefully, unlike myself. We've got 2 12.3-inch screens, one being the main infotainment screen, which is snappy enough, easy enough to navigate through. It is touchscreen based. You've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the Apple CarPlay is actually wireless. So well done, Hyundai, for sorting that out in this one. The driver information display is brilliant. It's got everything you need and a bit more. You do have some of those bings and bongs that are now sort of ubiquitous in new cars, but of course you can disable those if you find them annoying or distracting, as I do. But yeah, the actual image quality, the colours, the brightness is all perfect. It's bang on. Down here, we've actually got a screen-based system for the aircon controls. And whilst you don't have physical buttons, which is usually the preference, yeah, this works really, really well. And it looks great. It feels a lot more modern than the outgoing system, which did have lots of physical buttons. And for me, yeah, it just works brilliantly well. You still do have a really easy dial to change your temperature up and down, which is the main thing you're doing when you're on the road. So no major grumbles there. Further down, we've got 2 USB-Cs. We've also got 2 QI wireless phone chargers and 2 ginormous cup holders, and this really quite useful big cubby. So that's all good. Now for something really interesting. Up here at the top of the dash, you've got a small compartment which you can hide things away in, but it also sanitizes said objects. That's bananas. You've also got a decent sized glove box, and everything feels nicely weighted and well screwed together. The seats are glorious. They're so comfortable. Like, I really do love these seats. Probably the best seats I've had in a Hyundai before. And you can recline it. It's got actually a recliner that pops out from the base, and you can turn this thing into an armchair or even a bit of a bed if you wanted to have a little doze, perhaps as a break on a long journey. It's just lovely in here. It feels so premium. You think this car at this price is competing against some of the big boys. You know, it will undoubtedly raise an eyebrow to 1 or 2 owners of things like Volvos and BMWs and Audis, as well as the Skoda Kodiaqs of the world. And this really competes with all of them. It feels fantastic. It's really well designed. In use, it all works. One thing I should mention, by the way, is that they've taken away the gear selector, which used to be here in the outgoing Santa Fe, and it's now here on this rotary dial. The only thing I don't like is it's backwards to reverse and forward to drive, which makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, but when you've come from driving automatic cars for donkey's years, where you go up for reverse and down for drive, it takes a minute to get used to it. But yeah, that takes it out of the way and frees up all this space here. So again, a nice piece of design. The stereo system's also worth an honourable mention. This one's got the Bose setup, and I'm not usually a massive fan of Bose stereos, but I think this one's tuned brilliantly well. It really is quite impressive and delivers a really good sound, whether you're listening to podcasts or the radio, or if you're listening to some fairly challenging music. It really does the job well. We've also got a nice clear head-up display, which is one you may have seen on other Hyundai and Kia vehicles in the past. All the effort that's undoubtedly gone into the design of this front cabin has been worth it, because this is a bit of a home run as far as I'm concerned. When you get out onto the road in this new Santa Fe, it's immediately obvious that it's all about comfort. The way the thing's been sprung, the way it sits, it's there to give you the most comfortable ride possible. It's very cosseting. As I said before, the seats are lovely and comfortable, but the suspension is also quite soft. It does mean, you know, if you get your foot down a little bit and you want to get slightly enthusiastic in the corners, then it's going to be a tiny bit wallowy, but you're not going to do that in this kind of car. It doesn't have that kind of performance. It's huge. It's not that kind of vehicle, you know, so we shouldn't really talk about these things like they're all going to be taken around the Nürburgring, because this one's going to be taken to Tesco's. So really the primary task for this car is to get you and your passengers and all their luggage and equipment around as comfortably as possible, and this really does that very, very well. Now, the plug-in hybrid system is an interesting one. It's often a point for debate amongst a lot of people. Well, firstly, Hyundai has priced it really well. Some manufacturers take the mick a little bit, quite frankly, with their plug-in hybrid pricing. Sometimes it's 10, 15 grand more than the petrol or hybrid version of the car. In this instance, it's about 4 or 5 grand more, and that seems eminently more sensible. If you're a company car driver, by the way, obviously you're going to get some benefit from having the plug-in hybrid over a standard hybrid, because the CO2 emissions figure will be so much lower. In the real world, in everyday driving, it means that you could possibly do your daily commute on all electric power, and if you can charge from home, that should cost you around about nothing to get to work and back. And of course, if you want to go on longer journeys, it will help to sort of manage the MPG figure of this vehicle by using both electricity and petrol. Now, this is a big heavy car, and the MPG figures in the real world on petrol alone are not going to be breathtaking. In the real world with this car, since I've had it, I've been doing really mixed driving. I've done a bit of everything. I've done one fairly long run, lots of round town stuff, and a little bit in between. And at the moment, it's telling me 38.5 mpg on average. I have had the battery topped up for most of that, but not for all of it, okay? So that's the real world as I've found it. And that's not a massively impressive number, is it? So I'm now driving the car in all electric mode. So all I'm using is the electricity from that battery. It feels good, it feels sprightly enough. Doesn't feel drastically different, if I'm being honest. I personally would suggest you just leave it in automatic mode and let it get on with what it wants to do. Unless, of course, you're doing your daily commute and you want to do that on electricity alone, so that you don't have to visit the petrol station very often. Because if you're using the car that way, it becomes a very different proposition, and that plug-in hybrid soon starts to pay for itself. As has become somewhat the norm in Hyundai and Kia vehicles, you've now got these brilliant blind spot cameras which appear on the dash whenever you turn the indicators on. They're really useful and practical, not a gimmick at all. Something I use all the time when I'm in one of these. And the steering's really nice and light. It's the easiest thing in the world to park, which is odd because it's so huge, but you've got brilliant 360 camera, really nice high definition. As has now become the norm in Kia and Hyundai vehicles, we've got these brilliant blind spot cameras, and the picture pops up whenever you put the indicator on. That feels like it might be a gimmick. It's not at all. It's brilliant. I use it all the time when I've got a car equipped with it, and I wonder why more manufacturers haven't followed suit, because it's that good. But if you had to sum up the way this car drives, and especially compared to some of its key rivals, some of them are more sporty, some of them have a bit more power and performance, some of them have more direct steering, feel a bit heavier, but they're big SUVs, and I feel this setup here just suits the vehicle perfectly. It's just a nice thing to drive. Folks, I think the last big SUV that I got really excited about was the Kia EV9, and obviously some of the things that are great about that EV9 have been carried across here, and they've kind of kept some of those things in the family. But I think I prefer this overall. I think it just feels great in every way. It would be nice to see a fully electrified version of this as well, so we've got all bases covered, and perhaps that will come in future, who knows. But it's just a brilliant car. It looks great. I never thought I would have a Hyundai Santa Fe on review and do the look back when I've parked it somewhere, because I just want to get a little glimpse of it again because it looks so lovely. But this does that as well. It's great. Honestly, I've been blown away by this car, and I didn't expect to be. I knew it was going to be a good car. I knew Hyundai wouldn't release a substandard Santa Fe, but I didn't expect it to have come on as much as it has. I expected perhaps a little bit of evolution, not a bit of a revolution, which, considering the underpinnings of this car are the same as the outgoing one, the way it feels so very different is nothing if not impressive. Go and check one out, you won't regret it. Please, if you're looking for a lease deal on one of these, click my link to Lease Loco in the video description. It does help support the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Very few of you watching this will be subscribed. I'm sometimes less boring than this and more entertaining, so please subscribe, and maybe in the next one I'll deliver on that promise. Maybe not. Please give the video a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and I'll catch you on the next one. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.